Hi, parents. If you've discovered that your teen son is struggling with pornography, then you're in the right place today. First, know it is completely natural to feel overwhelmed, feel isolated and heartbroken. And honestly, it's natural to feel a desperate urge to just fix it overnight. And maybe you've been walking this road with him for a few months now and he's doing better. Maybe the immediate crisis is past, but you're left sitting there wondering, well, when will things truly stabilize? Or when can I finally stop walking on eggshells? Well, here's the truth that most parents aren't told. Recovery isn't just a behavioral switch, it's a physical, biological healing process. And while the initial chemical reset happens in the first few months, repairing the deep physical architecture of a teenager's brain is a marathon, not a sprint. And I know that can be disappointing to learn because we all want a quick, immediate fix. But stick with me because I want to give you hope and direction. Today, we're talking about phase three, long term structural recovery, which lasts from 6 months to over 2 years. We're going to dive into the actual neuroscience of what is happening beneath the surface, why cravings strike out of nowhere, and concrete tools like the Recovery Toolbox for Teens and Starguy's Wilderness Therapy that can help your son cross the finish line into lasting freedom. So if you're a parent trying to navigate this minefield, you're not alone. Let's get into the science. Well, parents, during the first few months of your son deciding to step away from pornography, his daily dopamine levels finally begin to balance out. The chaotic emotional roller coaster might start to level off, but phase three, the 6 month to 2 year mark, is where the real heavy lifting happens. This phase is all about structural repair. Functional MRI or fMRI studies show us something incredible. Compulsive pornography use actually alters the physical shape and connectivity of the prefrontal cortex. Well, what is the prefrontal cortex? It's the very front part of the brain. Think of it as the brain's control tower or executive center. It's responsible for logic and reasoning, judgment, decision making, evaluating future consequences, emotional regulation. When a teenager is compulsively using pornography, the gray matter and the communication pathways in this control tower become compromised. Their ability to say no, to look at a bad decision and see the consequences is physically weakened. So when your son stops using pornography, it doesn't magically snap back. It can take anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years for the connectivity in this region to fully normalize. And you might ask, well, Matt, why does it take so long? The timeline depends heavily on two factors: how early the habit started and how intense it was. Because teenager's brain is already undergoing massive, rapid development, intervention during this specific window is incredibly impactful, but it requires time. You are literally waiting for a physical organ to remodel itself. Parents, to understand why this takes up to 2 years, we have to look at a tiny molecular culprit inside the brain, and it's called, what's a protein? It's called the Delta FosB. They think of Delta FosB as a molecular switch. When someone engages in a highly stimulating compulsive behavior like pornography use, this exceptionally stable protein builds up in the brain's reward center, essentially acts as a permanent memory trace of the addiction. So have you ever had the moment where your son has been doing great for 4 or 5 months and then suddenly out of absolutely nowhere, he hits a massive wall of cravings or experiences a relapse? Well, this is a common occurrence in the recovery journey. And as a parent, it feels terrifying. You think, oh no, we're back at square one. But neurochemically, that is just the Delta FosB talking. It lingers, sits in the brain, keeping the old addiction pathways primed and ready. But beautiful news about phase three recovery is that over this extended period, 6 months to 2 years, these stubborn Delta FosB proteins finally gradually begin to decline as they fade away. The physical pathways of the addiction literally wither away from disuse, just like an overgrown path in the woods that nobody walks on anymore. The brain prunes those unhealthy pathways and the healthy, balanced architecture of the brain is restored again. Because phase three recovery is a long term neurological remodeling project, I need to be very honest with you as a clinician. Willpower alone usually isn't enough. Your son's brain is doing structural repair, which means that he needs structural support in his environment to match it. He needs a daily scaffolding to lean on while those neural pathways heal. And there are two powerful resources that I recommend to families navigating this critical window. One is the Recovery Toolbox for teens. First, healing requires rewriting daily habits. We have to replace the old pathways with new healthy ones. And this is where Recovery Toolbox workbooks come in. These workbooks provide a structured, age appropriate framework designed specifically for young men. Rather than just focusing on a negative, stop doing this behavior, the workbooks focus on a positive, start healthy coping mechanisms. They give your son practical daily tools to identify his unique emotional triggers like stress or boredom or loneliness, help to build real world emotional regulation skills, track his progress visually. And this breaks down the overwhelming 2-year marathon of structural recovery into bite-sized, manageable daily wins. I realize that for some families, the digital environment at home simply contains too many triggers, or perhaps the habit so deeply entrenched that the workbooks alone and outpatient therapy isn't moving the needle. And long term structural recovery has completely stalled. And this is where you find yourself. You need a deeper, more specialized intervention. And this is why I highly recommend Star Guides Wilderness Therapy for those situations. Star Guides is an incredible program that combines profound grounding, healing power of the outdoors and primitive living with targeted clinical therapy specifically tailored for teens dealing with compulsive digital behaviors and pornography addiction. By removing the digital noise entirely, Star Guides gives your son's prefrontal cortex the clean, distraction free space that it desperately needs to heal. While he's out there, our expert therapists and clinical team help him to process the underlying emotional challenges, whether that's anxiety or trauma or low self esteem that fueled the behavior in the first place. It is a profound way to jumpstart deep structural repair. Parents, as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a note of grace and perspective here. If your son is in this 6-month to about 2-year window, please remember slips can happen, but slip or relapse doesn't mean that the brain architecture that he's built up to this point is entirely erased. He hasn't lost all his progress. The ultimate goal of phase 3 is consistency over perfection. So by pairing a scientific understanding of his brain with the right therapeutic tools like daily workbooks and the Recovery Toolbox for teens and specialized therapy, you can confidently guide him through this marathon. You can help him successfully cross the finish line into long-term, lasting freedom. You're doing a great job, parents. Don't lose heart. If you want to check out the Recovery Toolbox for Teens or learn more about Star Guides Wilderness Therapy, I've left all the links in the description below. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Parent Guide channel, and leave a comment below if you have questions about the recovery timeline. We're in this together. See you next time.